Hey friend, welcome to the simple 50-30-20 budget. If you're watching this video, that means you just purchased your 50-30-20 budget, and we at Winky Sheets want to say thank you and congratulations to being one step closer to reaching your financial goals. Now this 50-30-20 budget is a part of a larger annual budget which has more functionality and more creative options to explore financial freedom. If you'd like to increase your functionality in this spreadsheet, feel free to follow the link in the description below to find out more about that ultimate annual budget. Now, before we get started, if you find there are any questions that you still have after watching this video, feel free to reach out to us directly at team@winkysheets.com. After you purchased this budget, you received a download PDF link. Whether you're on Mac or PC, we're going to want to double click that PDF to open it in a PDF viewer. If you're on Mac, you may be used to just pressing spacebar to open PDFs, but you'll notice that you can't actually click the links within it. So we'll want to actually double click that PDF to open it in a PDF viewer like Adobe Reader. Once inside, you'll notice that we have 4 currency options to choose from. I'm in the US, so I'm going to choose dollars. Now, once I choose my currency, I'll notice that this template preview shows up in Google Sheets. Don't worry if it looks a little funky at first. It's going to look totally normal once we click Use Template in the top right corner. Now, in your first time using this budget, there are a couple things that we need to do first. Firstly, you'll notice here at the top that some formulas are trying to send and receive data from external parties. We need to simply click Allow Access. Secondly, we just made ourselves a template, but sometimes Google Sheets will mistakenly show us a view only icon. All we need to do is go up to File, make a copy, and then we can call this whatever it is we want to personalize it for ourselves. Now I'll simply click Make a Copy and my budget will work for me. You may notice sometimes on opening Google Sheets that some of your charts or graphs may be in weird positions or look a little awkward. This is a common quirky thing about Google Sheets. All we need to do is click any random tab below and go back to our current tab, and we'll find that the charts have gone back to normal. Now finally, on our first time opening this spreadsheet, you may find that as you click through different tabs, they might be blank or they might be missing some information. This is totally normal, and assuming we're on a strong internet connection, all we need to do is go up to the top and click Refresh. Regardless of whether we're in Chrome or Safari or any other browser of your choosing, it should now look totally normal. Okay, now that we're ready to get started, we'll find that our first tab here is our 50-30-20 budget. We have several tabs listed down here below that are going to help us collect the data that we need to fill out this budget correctly. We'll want to go to our second tab down here that you'll notice says Start Here. As you move throughout the spreadsheet, you'll notice that there are helpful tips at the tops and the sides of each tab, as well as helpful notes in different cells that have this triangle icon in the corner. So this video will be a helpful guide to make sure you know how to use this spreadsheet, but if you ever forget one of the things that we discussed in this video, you can simply find that advice throughout. Now, diving right into our spreadsheet, you'll notice that we have some different categories here to input before we can fill out the rest of the spreadsheet. Our income, our savings, our recurring expenses, and our variable expenses. I can add in my source of income that's personalized to me. Now, maybe you have an employer and you work a 9-to-5 job and you want to enter that employer's name here. Maybe you want to enter your partner or your spouse's income source here. If I don't have multiple sources of income, I can simply remove what I don't want. You'll notice here in this second column that we can add our start date, or what day of the month we receive this income, and how frequently we receive it, whether that's weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. Now this is going to be helpful once we reach our bill calendar in order to be able to see when we receive certain income. Now keep in mind, you may not remember exactly when you started to receive this type of income. Maybe it was a couple of years ago, or you don't know exactly what day. The key thing that we want to include here is for any income that we receive regularly, in this example bi-weekly, we just want to make sure we have the right days of the month that we receive it. So maybe we're in the month of July and we have a start date in January. It doesn't really matter too much as long as we know the day of each month. If this is set to bi-weekly, that's going to show that twice a month we receive this income starting on the 15th. But let's say you receive income that isn't consistently paid on the same day every single month. You can simply type in the first of every month, or let's say the last day of every month. This is totally up to you in order to show this correctly on the bill calendar. Of course, remember to add this either as monthly or weekly, however is going to be most helpful for you to keep track of this income. Now moving on to the savings column, we're going to enter any of our savings goals that we're trying to reach. If you're like most people, you may not have 4 different savings accounts Think of this section more as the different goals that you're trying to reach for your savings. Maybe you're trying to save up for a down payment for a house. Maybe you want to have money set aside for traveling or for car repairs when those come up. We're going to enter each of those savings funds here so that we can measure how close we are to reaching our savings goals. Now, as we move down, you'll notice that we have our recurring expenses and our variable expenses. Some expenses that we pay each month, like our bills, our debts, and our subscriptions, come out on a regular basis. Maybe there's a certain day every month, or maybe even quarterly, that I make these regular payments. And then we have expenses that come out at various times, or maybe in different amounts. For example, I often like to go to restaurants, and I often buy groceries, but I don't do it on the exact same day every single month, and the amounts are different each time. For any of those changing expense types, we're going to enter in our variable expenses, and any of our recurring expenses that come out regularly and by the same amount, we're going to enter over here in this section. Now you'll notice that we have some helpful examples in here to give you a hint as far as what these bills, debts, and subscriptions might look like for you. For example, most people pay rent or their mortgage at the same time every month. These are recurring expenses, similar to our water bill or our gas bill or our phone bill. Similarly, we have our different debts that we can add here. Maybe I have multiple credit cards and I want to keep track of them by name. Next, we'll do that with any subscriptions we have for maybe streaming platforms or old magazines that we may have forgotten that we signed up for years ago. We're going to add those subscriptions here. Now, finally, go through and add any of the different categories that you spend on variably, irregularly. Now, moving on to our bills tab, you're going to start to notice we're getting more specific on the different types of bills, debts, and subscriptions payments that we make each month. For each of our regular monthly bills, we have a certain day of month, usually, that we make these payments. For example, maybe your rent comes out on the 5th of every month. I can simply type that day of the month here in this column. Now, all of these bill types, debt types, and subscription types have all input from our Start Here tab, but I can add the monthly amount for each of these bills that come out regularly. Now, you may have noticed this variable bills section on the right. While we have recurring bills, we may have additional payments or different amounts that we pay toward a certain bill, debt, or subscription. For example, we'll find the same categories over here of expenses that we have. But let's say, for example, on a credit card that I have a regular monthly bill payment of $50 a month. Let's say I wanted to pay off my balance on the 5th of January. I still made my regular monthly payment. You'll notice I've added the 14th as the day of each month that bill is paid. But here on the right side, I can add any variable bills, any additional payments, or any out of the ordinary payments that I may have had to make toward one of these categories. In this case here, I paid an additional $200 toward that credit card on this date. This is going to be helpful in order to get specific on things that are not only regular monthly payments, but also things that you made additional payments toward. Here on this side, you can add any notes that you like, but this is totally optional. It just may be helpful for you to keep track of these expenses throughout the year. Now, of course, you can type in each of your transactions manually, but what if you want to import your transactions from a bank account? This is really simple. You'll want to go to your bank website. For example, I have my bank accounts at Bank of America. I can simply go to my account history or my transactions and click download. And instead of downloading a bank statement, I'm going to download a CSV file, or what might be called a Microsoft Excel format. Now, this may show up a little differently from bank to bank, but your bank should allow you to download a CSV file. Now, once you've downloaded this CSV file, you can either open it in Microsoft Excel if you have that, or you can open this in Google Sheets. To open it in Google Sheets, you'll just simply want to create a new blank spreadsheet. You'll go to File, Import, go to Upload, then simply drag and drop your CSV into Google Sheets. We can go ahead and click Import Data. Great, now all of our transactions for the period that we chose are downloaded. Now importantly, in order to copy everything over correctly, we'll want to copy everything column by column. So going back now to our annual budget, I can simply choose the cell I'm on and right-click, Paste Special Values Only. Now the same way I can Command V or Control V, and I can do this as well, and simply go up here and click Paste Values Only. This is so that it doesn't ruin the formatting and the colors that are default to our template. I can do the same thing with the description column, so I know what each item is. I can simply paste and then click values only. Then I can simply adjust these as I like so that they're readable. Now you'll notice on some bank statements that the amounts of your transactions may show negative for expenses. Now we don't want to copy those in with negatives so that our budget works correctly. Now you could go one by one and remove the negatives, but a quick tip to remove all the negatives is to select a cell that's aligned on the same row as your transaction. Simply type equal sign, then click the first cell, put times -1, and then it will turn that number positive. Now I can simply slide down and all of my transactions are going to show positive. Now this is the amount I can simply copy and go back to my transactions here and paste in. Same way, I can paste values only, or I can also again right click and say pay special values only. Now again, be careful for the positive numbers that they don't flip negative, and you make sure to update those as needed. Now moving on to our transactions tab, we're going to approach this similarly by entering our transactions throughout the year that we made toward our variable expenses. Remember, these are things that come out at various times. We're going to enter our transactions throughout the year of when we received different sources of income, and then anytime that we made transfers to our different savings funds. Now you may find it helpful, like this tip says here at the top, to download a PDF or a CSV file from your bank website, or download your bank statements or credit card statements in order to input each of these transactions for the year so far. I recommend going through and adding your transactions by date, which means that you won't just have one category here input, you're going to have things continue to come up, like restaurants. We're going to have multiple times that this comes up, and I can enter the date that this transaction came out, starting with the month, a slash, and followed by the date. Once again, here on the right side, I can add any descriptions that are going to be helpful to remember what this transaction was for. Similarly, we're going to add any of our income throughout the year. We're going to type in the date that we received that income, as well as the type of income and exactly how much that was. And then in our savings transfers, we're going to add the same thing. Any times that we've transferred money to one of our different savings funds. In this example, to my travel fund, I sent $200 from my checking or my savings account in order to reach those savings goals. Now remember, all of this information is going to be viewable either on your bank statements, your credit card statements, or your account history on your bank websites. Now that we've completed these 3 tabs at the bottom, we'll find that all of our transactions are now included throughout the rest of the spreadsheet. Before moving forward, let's go back to our 50-30-20 budget now that we have our transactions input. As we get started here, in case you forget, you'll notice that there are some helpful tips that tell you how to use this budget. First, we're simply going to choose the month that we want to review. Now, regardless of what month you decide to look at first, we'll find that all of our expenses that we've input now show up on this 50-30-20 budget under the categories of need and want. I can simply go through this column and mark everything that's a need as well as everything that is a want. If you're unfamiliar with a 50-30-20 budget and its strategy, the idea is that in order to save effectively, 50% of our income goes to our needs, 30% goes to our wants, and 20% goes to our savings and debt. So, as I mark different categories down here for things that are a required payment, let's say like my water bill or gas, I may go to something like clothing. That might not be a need. I may need clothing to operate in this world, but I may not need to buy clothes every single month, just like I may not need to go to the movie theater. Now, this isn't good or bad. I can add need or want to any of these expense types just to get an idea of where my money is going. For example, in the month of January, our total income was $2,600. And based on our chosen percentages here, that means that half, 1,300, went toward needs, 780 went toward wants, and 520 went to savings and debt. Now, you may decide that maybe 50% of your income doesn't go to your needs. Maybe you actually want it to be 40%. In other words, maybe you want your wants to be 40% as well. As long as this totals to 100%, you can change these percentages to whatever it is you like. Maybe my needs actually take up most of my income, and I need to drop this down to 20% for my wants and 20% towards savings and debt. You'll notice that each of the remaining calculations update in response to tell us how much of our income went to each category. Throughout the rest of this tab, you'll find some helpful charts and some information on where your money went. For example, like your top expenses or your debt payments. Now moving on from our 50-30-20, let's head to our bill calendar. If we completed our start date and our frequency for our income, we'll notice that that income now displays on our bill calendar for the days of the month that's received. In this case, we chose bi-weekly, and so you'll notice every 2 weeks that income is received, as well as any of our transactions on the given dates that we input on our bills tab. The only thing that we need to do on this bill calendar is update the month and the year. You'll notice here in this note, just like all of our other date notes, how to type in that month. As a reminder, you'll type in the month / the first day of the month in order to look at the bill calendar for that specific month. Finally, we have our financial freedom tab. Now, this is a little bonus tab that we included to help you measure how close you are to achieving financial freedom. And like most people, you're looking ahead at the future decades to determine how much money do I need to save in a retirement account in order to retire with enough money. This tab explores some helpful details on the types of investment accounts most people prefer to invest in and in what order. This calculator here on the left allows you to enter your current age, the age you wish to retire at, what your current investment account balances are, and how much you want to contribute annually. And it will tell you here at the bottom what that amount will be by the time you reach that age. Now, your average return amount in the US on average for the S&P 500 is around 10%, and the average life expectancy in the US is around 78. But you can, of course, change these numbers as you like. In fact, if you think you're going to reach the age of 95, by all means, update that. We want to determine how much money you'll have on a yearly basis in your retirement accounts by the end of that life expectancy age. Additionally, this financial freedom tab will have some other helpful tips on how to automate your finances, how to create automatic transfers to save more effectively, and what percentage of your income you can invest in order to meet those retirement goals. And there you have it. That is your 50-30-20 budget. As we mentioned at the beginning, if you have any trouble with any other part of this spreadsheet that wasn't mentioned throughout this video, we'd love for you to reach out. Simply contact us with the link in the description or email us at team@winkysheets.com, and we'd love to help answer any of your questions there. Best of luck and happy budgeting.